Glitch speedruns of Hollow Knight Silksong can look a little overwhelming. Hornet spends a lot of time off screen, and the glitch tech looks bizarre and confusing without context. Well, this is that context. By the end of the video, you'll have everything you need to know to beat the game in less than 10 minutes. Hello, I'm Mimi. I'm a glitch runner and router of both Hollow Knight and Silksong. I was the first person to break the 10-minute barrier in any % all glitches, and I know this category very well. This will be a guide dedicated to the category, as well as the glitches in it. Glitch routes tend to change quickly with new discoveries, so I will do my best to update with any future news. Any footage shown that I did not make will be visibly credited, and any links mentioned will be posted in the description in the speedrun.com page. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments or in the speedrunning Discord. We really love talking about glitches there. If you haven't set up for a Silksong speedrun before, look in the description or speedrun.com guide for links to other very helpful guides. Important note, even if you are already set up for other speedruns, you may need to find an additional mod that will help for glitch practice. Now that the setup is covered, let's start looking at the run. Before each run, use the in-game frame rate cap to swap your FPS to 30. First trick of the run is frame perfect, so low FPS is ideal, and the lowest we can get that complies with the rules is the 30 FPS in-game cap. You're going to need it in just a second. But for now, just like any other run, this starts by creating a new file. I would recommend using slot 1 for this. I find it to be the easiest, but that's not required. Any slot will work. So just start the new file and then mash through cutscenes. As soon as Hornet starts standing up, you should start mashing focus and then mash escape to quit out as soon as possible. And now it's time for the first glitch of the run. Main menu storage, often abbreviated as MMS, is a glitch where multiple pages of the main menu are overlaid on top of each other. The main use of this glitch is to open multiple save files at the same time, which will load them at the same time and cause glitches once we're actually in game. There's several ways to get the glitch, but there's one specific way that's best for getting a skip after it. So I'm going to focus on that one. First, you need to press bind or escape to open the quick game menu. Next, click on no with both mouse buttons, and you need to release both mouse buttons on the exact same graphics frame, which is a lot easier if you have your FPS set to 30 than if you have it set to 200 or something. If you were successful in getting the double click, then you'll hear a louder sound, and you should be able to interact with the main page earlier than you would normally. Immediately after getting the double click, you should start mashing either jump or enter and either bind or escape. If you get it, then the file select screen should appear and a quit game menu should appear over it. From here, there's two separate ways to continue. For the first method, you start by very quickly clicking on an empty file, ideally the one that's right next to the file you just made, and then very quickly click to create a new file, and right after, move your cursor over to the old file and click it. The timing is dependent on how fast your loads are, and it's very precise. Depending on your loads, if you click too early, you might not get a dupe at all, and if you click too late, then you won't be able to skip cutscenes. And do not mash click. If you mash click, you can hardlock your game, and you'll be forced to completely close the window. I find that method to be a little more difficult because all of your actions are on a timer. You need to click quickly through each one before your menus completely load, or else you won't be able to select the other file, and the MMS room dupe will not happen. For the second method, instead of clicking on a file right away, keep pressing bind. If you did this right, then it should close the quick game menu and it will open the main screen of your main menu behind your file select. If you keep pressing bind from here, a second quick game menu should appear. Now you don't want to press this too quickly, or else you won't be able to select multiple files later, but you can press pretty fast. So once the second quick game menu appears, if you didn't go too early, then when you select a file, it will not close the file select like it would have with the other method. So from here, you're free to stop to time your inputs as much as you like. Now this method is a tiny bit slower than the other method, but because you get that lack of timing restriction, getting the cutscene skip is a lot easier. The requirement to get cutscene skip is that you get that really precise timing a little bit after you make the new file. Now, if you did get cutscene skip, then you should be able to mash right through the cutscenes that are happening. The screen will be black, but you can still mash through them. However, if you didn't get cutscene skip, then you just kind of have to sit there. Cutscene skip takes about 30 seconds of waiting, and if you don't get it, it's a couple minutes. If everything went right, then when you load in, there should be 2 copies of the starting tutorial Moss Grotto room. Now you can't directly see this from the terrain or anything, but the colors will be a little bit distorted and it's quite noticeable. This is what's known as a room dupe. A room dupe is a game state where multiple rooms are loaded at once, each containing everything that it would usually have, such as terrain, enemies, hazards, rosaries, etc. The currently loaded rooms will all be aligned at their bottom left corners, and the camera will usually get stuck in the room that you last entered. This is why there can be a lot of off-screen movement in runs. Room dupes work like a list of rooms with a fixed total. They start with 2 rooms, and each time a new room is entered, it gets added to the top of the list, and the bottom one is removed. There's some special rooms that can increase the total, but most dupes in this route will be 2 rooms only. We'll get into that a little bit more later. The lowest or oldest on the list is called the active room, and this is the room the game actually considers you to be in for things like where to save you when you sit on a bench, and where to put your cocoon when you die. So, to understand some of the weirdness of the mechanics of room dupes, we need to look at how exactly a transition or load works. Transitions are the little areas that you enter to go into a different room. In Silksong, transitions don't actually have a specific point that they try to send you to. Instead, how they work is they tell the game which room to load, and then they give the game a specific ID that it wants you to go to. IDs can look something like left 1, right 1, left 2, etc. And they typically are aligned from top to bottom. Now, when you're not in a room dupe, this works the way you might expect. It loads the room and takes you to the proper spot. However, in a room dupe, it works a little bit differently. So, when it checks that transition ID, it looks in the oldest room that you've loaded before the newer ones. So, instead of entering that spot in the room you just loaded, it will look at the room that you were in before to see if it can find something of the same transition ID. So, if you try to enter a right 1, and there's a right 1 in the room that was already loaded before, then it'll actually take you to that right 1. This is actually really good for speedruns, and it really helps us move around the map a lot faster than we were able to before in Hollow Knight, where it worked the opposite way. Okay, to start off, you'll spawn in a room dupe of 2 copies of Tutorial 01, and you'll want to make your way towards the left and into the first transition. Now, you can pogo on the way there, try to do some neutral pogos if you want, and then break the wall and go through. So when you go through, the game goes through the same process it goes through every time. First, it looks for the first room it looks for the room it needs to go to. So it takes that room, puts it on the top of the list, and then removes the bottom of the list. After it's done with that, it then looks at the target transition ID. So it finds that target transition ID. You can see what it is by looking at what's on the other side of that load. So from that one, you can see there's a right 2 over there, and so the game is going to start looking for right 2s. But it's going to take that list that we have of rooms, and it's going to look at the bottom of that list first. So it looks in Tutorial 01 and sees if it can find a right 2, and it does. So it puts us over there. So when we come out of this transition, it's going to have the list changed, the room list changed to this, and we'll leave from what's normally this blue room's right 2. From there, we will immediately turn around into the previous load, and we'll head into this right 2 load, which will lead to, on the other side, a yellow left 2. So again, when we enter a Tutorial 01B, then it adds that to the top of the room list, and it removes the old one. So when this is done, this Tutorial 01 will be unloaded, and we'll be left with a and the new room of the tutorial 1B, and the pink room from before. So, when it's looking for that left 2, the first thing it's going to check is the bottom room, the oldest room. It looks in tutorial 02 to see if it can find a left 2. But, as we see, tutorial 02 only has a right 1 and a right 2. So, when it can't find it, it defaults up to the next on the list, which in this case will be the yellow room. So we'll go in the one that might be, that you would expect to be the normal transition is where we'll end up. And when we do, it's going to be another immediate turnaround. So, looking back again, this time we see that we went right back into the left 2, which leads to the blue right 2. So, first it checks to add the tutorial 01, which it adds to the top of the list, removing the tutorial 02. And next it starts looking for room codes. So now it's going to look for a right 2 in the oldest room, which is yellow, this tutorial 01B, but it doesn't find any there. There's only a right 1 in this room. So again, it's going to move up the list and default back to tutorial 01. So we'll end up in this blue right 2 where you might have expected. Now that we're in this room, we're in this sort of hallway here. And in this hallway, we just head forward. Now, technically, this is actually re-entering the same room because that blue room actually is to the right of the other transition. So when we head forward, we're going to go directly into that other transition, even though it looks like on the map that it maybe shouldn't, but that's just how the rooms overlap. We entered that right 2 a second time, and now it's going to load a second copy of tutorial 01, and of course the only right 2 in tutorial 01 is the right 2. So from here we proceed across the room and grab the rosary beads because we're going to need those for later. And from there we just continue across and try to skip as much of that sleepy as possible and walk out of the room. Now leaving that blue left 2 load into a pink right 1, the game again looks at what room it should add first, sees tutorial 02 to add to the list, it puts it at the top, and unloads that tutorial 01 we had from before. And in doing so, it next checks for a right 1, and when it does, it's again going to look at the oldest first, see if this blue tutorial 01 has a right 1, and it does. So it's going to take us there. So we will appear at the top. From here, you just want to cross this room. Make sure not to fall. You probably won't be able to get in so many dives because you will be blind for this. I'll show off really quick what it looks like if you are blind. As you can see, there's this big green area in the middle here, big massive leaves. And I like to jump around when that's at the middle of the screen as my visual cue. And cross the room and break the wall. Okay, so now this one is maybe a little bit more complex. From before, we have the tutorial 02 loaded, and now we're going to be headed into tutorial 03 from here, from our blue left 1 towards tutorial 03. So again, it removes the bottom list. Now we have a tutorial 03 and a tutorial 02. Now because we went into this left one leading to a right one, now it's going to look for a right one in our oldest room, which is tutorial 02, and it sees it. Now we will spawn in this top load in tutorial 02, which is very convenient because it happens to be right above the height of the previous room of tutorial 03, which allows us to cross the room and hit the bone bottom load from the top. You want to dodge here. If you, so from here there's actually a split in strats. There is, later on, there is a really hard damage tank that gets a lot easier if you have some silk gathered. So this is the point where you would want to gather most of that silk. At least 3 or 4 hits of silk. You want to grab a lot if you can, if you are going for that strat. It's a lot riskier without, but it's doable, and there is the very safety route, which doesn't need it either. And here's what this room looks like blind. You'll see that there is this sort of climbable area here, which you can kind of tell from the light where you are. If you can, it's nice to land on the first bit of geometry and then use a mantle to get to the top of the first part. And then if you full jump and then tap left at the top of your jump, you'll mantle again, and then you'll know exactly where you are. And now we've appeared in Bone Bottom. We made it. By re-entering this load, we're going to hit the top load from Bone Bottom because that will be our new oldest room. Alright, so let's talk about our goal for the next section. From here, all we need to do is make it to the bench at the lower part of Blasted Steps. We call that midway bench. And then have 60 rosaries to buy the bench, and from there, we have everything we need to win. Our only goal, you don't need any equipment from there, just get to that bench and we can win. So how are we going to get there? Well, we're going to go up from here and go into Shellwood. Now, thankfully, there's a way to get up there without too much work. You don't have to go around or anything. If we look here, if we could make it to this load, then we could walk up. Now, normally that takes actually going from this way, but we're going to use Room Dupe to move rooms around so that we actually exit from this load with nothing in the way. So, first step, this is going to be entirely blind, so keep that in mind. My movement here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and listen for 3 steps. And then, when you are in Bone Bottom, there is text that appears on screen saying Bone Bottom, and you can't interact with anything until that text goes away. So, what we do is, there's actually a way to skip that. If you open and close inventory, that will make the text go away and you can interact immediately. But instead of just opening and closing inventory, we need to crack this rosary string eventually anyway, so you might as well do it now while opening inventory. There's no reason not to. So we're going to open that, and then we're going to walk in this door. There's an important thing to note here that's changed since Hollow Knight. Keep in mind that when you're moving to the side, you can't interact with things, so instead of trying to hold a direction and then keep tapping up or down, instead you want to let go and just sort of tap. Tap forward, tap down, tap forward, tap down a bit, and eventually you'll reach the door. And then from here, we're just going to turn back and forth, re-entering and then turn back and forth until we reach that exit. So keep turning rooms around, and we're here. That comes back from that part where the game is looking for the right ID but in the wrong spot. If you are gathering soul here, you're going to want to get the last of it off of these guys. This is the last spot you can get soul for the trick later. So keep that in mind. Now, like I said, the bench costs 60 rosaries. We only have 30. There are exactly 30 rosaries in these strings and on the ground here, so you need to get all of them. However, Team Cherry thought it would be funny to play a prank on us, and it's actually possible for these rosaries to go flying really far and fall out of the area here and go all the way down, and you cannot recover it from there. Sometimes they actually fall into the pit there, so you literally cannot save them. We're not getting any rosaries for the rest of the time until that bench, so this is your only spot to get them. if you want to play this very safe, you can do something like this and try to catch the beads. Try to catch the beads as they go. If not, just kind of swing and grab them all and go. It's a little riskier, but you can see this one went all the way down there. But it's not that much. It's not that risky, and it's pretty good. Okay, so now let's look again at how the rooms are going to go. So our active room at the moment is not Bone Bottom. It is another room over here. So when we go up into this next room, our active room is going to be Bone Bottom. So let's do that now. When it is our active, when the active room is Bone Bottom, we're going to come up from the bottom Bone Bottom load, which would be right here. Now the other room that we have is the really tall room. It is above this room normally. Now this room has the loads all the way at the top. So when we go back down in here, we're going to go down into a bottom load, but our active room is going to be that really tall room, so we're going to pop up at the top of that room. And when you do, you want to hold right and start mashing down attacks. So you can actually make it. And you should land here. If you didn't get enough, you might end up here, and this is blind again, so you have to be careful. Land here, and then it's just one more pogo. Or if you want to be clever, it's two. Now from here, again, you're not going to see anything, but this is just a turn. And we're going to be doing a lot of turning here. I'll show off the most important rooms. So after the first turn, there's going to be a wall here, and you want to break it here. I'll show you what happens if you don't break it. So if you turn immediately, you don't break it. But unfortunately, it pushes you back out of this load, which you can enter. So you lose a tiny bit of time by having to actually walk back through and back in, but not that much. It's not that big a deal. It's just slightly faster to break it in the previous room. Okay, now this is the point where you have to pay attention because of this room. If you fall out of bounds here, you are stuck and you have to take put out, and you probably have to restart a dupe, and you might as well just reset at that point. So after you go into that right load, I like to think about it based on the breakable wall. So I know right after the breakable wall section, it's one more right turn, and then I'll be at this room. So when I turn to the right again, I am going to just keep walking forward and holding forward. So once you get through here, you walk back, and you want to keep turning and turning, and you'll reach here. So this is the split point of the run. I'm going to drop a save state here, and we'll talk about the two routes through from here. The first route is a simpler one, but slightly slower, and that just is go pick up Cling Grip now. So just pick it up here, and wait. Unfortunately, Team Cherry thought it would be really funny to make it so that Cling Grip and all skills take like 20 seconds to pick up, because, I don't know, it's funny, I guess. But yeah, I just gotta sit here and wait on it. And then we're going to immediately go back to where we came from. This will be blind, but it's not bad to do blind. It's just like two pogos, and then you jump up. And you jump out of here. Doing pogos or not, this is blind. I find the pogo neutrals to be a lot harder when you're doing them blind. So I don't usually do them. I just do the tall ones when it's possible and just walk otherwise. So walk forward and walk again. At this point, I start looking at these golden bell things in the background, and I know that I'm at the important room that's coming up as soon as these, the second one of these. So I see from here, as soon as I am not in the gold ones, I know that the room where I have to actually stop just turning is coming up. So this is what it'll look like, but you notice it's more green and not the bells that you see. So with this strategy, all you need to do is, you're going to be blind here, but you want to walk off the edge and walk, and then go down here. How I like to do this when I do it is I like to do up slashes to know how far I've gone, and then after I think I've walked off, then I'll do some pogos down. So 3, and there. Ideally you don't hit that guy, but it doesn't really matter. Just hold right. Try not to cling this if you can, but it's not the end of the world. You're gonna hit this load. So this load is to Bell Shrine. Now, unfortunate part about the Bell Shrine is that let me just make a save state here and show you what happens if you do this. And I'm going to turn on invulnerability really quick. Invincibility, sorry. So, normally, when you are when you're opening a Bell Shrine in, say, NMG, you're going to hit this lever, and then you're going to leave and come back so that it changes faster. Now, let's see what happens if we try to leave here. You would go directly into spikes. Now, I'm not going to show this because I don't want to hard lock. Editing Mimi here. What I meant to say is that when you enter a hazard directly from the load, the game will lag really bad and has a lot of trouble accepting any inputs. It's not good. So make sure you don't do that. That would be bad. Okay, so now that you had your weight, you know, you can mess around, just start doing some pokos or something. Doesn't really matter. And we're gonna wait on this. Notice that my active room is the Bell Shrine. Very important. How benches work in this game when you're in a room dupe is the game sees you as actually being in your active room. So if my active room was, let's say, another random room, and I try to bench, the game will actually check my active room for where I benched, not the spot I just benched at. The game now thinks that my bench should be in that room, but when it tries to load me in that room later, it will look for the bench in that room, and then it will get confused because there's not a bench in that room. And so when it tries to spawn me, it instead has a sort of failsafe where it puts you back at the start room. So we call that a false bench. If you get a false bench, then you'll respawn in the start room instead. We don't want that. We want to respawn at this bench. So it's a good thing the Bell Shrine is the active room here. Okay, so wait on the bench, sit down, and we're gonna quit out. So, like I said, our goal for this section is to walk through to the bench. So, we're going to walk through to the bench. It's to the left of here. Again, you could do some neutrals if you want. It's up to you. Now talk to Lace. Let her chat away. And just continue. One thing I want you to notice here is listen for the footsteps. This is really important for when we are in a dupe later and you won't be able to see in some places. Hornet has different footsteps based on the type of ground she's on, and so you can kind of tell generally where you are based on what you hear. So if I hear these kind of normal rocky sounds, then I know I am in this section. However, if I start hearing sand, then I know that I am at least this far. So I'm getting close to the spot I need to jump up at. The bench is right up here, so we're going to be trying to go around and up. Now, one special property of this area is that the only metal sound of this entire area is right here. So for later, when you're blind in the other route, if you were to do the other route, you would be blind here and you'll hear this metal if you walk on this section, which is really important because this is the exact section you want to be on to do the wall jumps. So something to note for later. And so you just do wall jumps up. And do some pogos again. and walk up here. Get to the bench. By the bench with our 60 rosaries exactly. Mess around while you're waiting on the bench. And sit on the bench. From here, you would quit out and immediately start another dupe and continue from there. And this is where our two saves will meet up. So I'm going to go from the other route now, and we're going to talk about that one. Okay, so now that we've reached the point where they reconnect, let's go back to the split, and we'll look at the other route. This is the harder route, but it is a little faster, so it's the route that I use. The main time saves are not having to wait on the bell and not having to start another dupe again. So we're going to be following this route. Note that this route is a lot harder, and it has two of the hardest rooms in the run, so keep that in mind. So, again, we're going to be looking at these gold pieces of terrain here, the bell terrain. So notice that this is bell terrain, and if we turn, then this is also bell terrain. So after the second bell-looking terrain, then we'll know that the next room is going to be the green room, which is right before the big trick that's coming up. So keep that in mind. If you are going to leave a save state here, then I would recommend leaving it here. I will show you why in just a second. So I will quickly leave a save state here and we'll continue on. In this next room, we are already loading the room that has it's the tall room with the flea and the fascias, and we are already loading these fascias. So we need them for later, and if we load them, if we preload them from the save state, then their position can be a little bit off from what it might be normally, so that can kind of mess with your practice a little bit. So I would recommend loading the save state before this room. So going back to the save state, I'm going to go over the main setups here that I have, and then I will show you some other setups that I've found or that other people have found. So the first setup, what we need to do here is we need to get across here and get hit by the flower. This is very difficult because you cannot see at all. So be entirely blind. So for my first setup, I will show you the no heal setup. So what I do is I listen for 3 metal footsteps, and then I full jump on the third. Full jump, land, do a couple left taps on when I land on the wood, and continue on. So here's what that looks like with vision. Like that. Now this is very precise. So, and also there's some RNG to it. With some fascia patterns, you are just going to get hit. This next setup was found by Savvy. For this one, you want to walk forward until you hear 3 metal footsteps. And a little bit after that, do a full jump until you land, wait a little bit, and then do another full jump forward. I want to stress that none of these setups are any quote-unquote better than the others. The best setup will always be the one that gets you to the other side the most consistently. So find what's right for you. It might not be what's right for me, but that's okay. Now they've gotten through the heal-less setups, let's look for some heal setups. Now heal setups are a little bit easier because of 2 reasons. The first is you don't have to time when you reach the side of the fascia. You can just get there and wait with a heal stall, and eventually the fascia will hit you. Second reason is that it is far more recoverable than a no heal setup. For example, if you get hit to the left by contact damage and you do not have heal, you are almost never going to make that ledge. However, if you are really far to the left and you happen to get contact damage to the left at a certain spot and you get the heal off after, there's a chance that you might make it. Additionally, if you somehow manage to find your way under the fascia again, and you jump to the left, if you don't have heal, you are never going to get the timing, almost never going to get the timing, where you actually get hit by it. But if you have a heal stall, then you have a good chance of actually getting it. So I'm going to start with my preferred setup that I did when I did the heal setup. I like to do a jump and try to land somewhere along the edge here. So a big jump and a pogo, somewhere around here. And then from there, I do a full jump and a full jump and heal. So let's look at that again. Land near the corner, full jump, bind near the peak of the jump. Okay, so let's see that with what you would normally see. So we're going to land, do that full jump, buffer, and heal. And that's what you would normally see. You have very little feedback on what's happening, but you can somewhat tell. This next setup was found by Pepe. For this one, you want to jump on the third metal step, do a full jump, and you'll land on the wood platform. You should hear one more wood step, and then full jump and heal. For this setup, do a full jump on the fourth metal step, then buffer another jump as you land, and heal. For the last setup, we're going to do 3 buffered full jumps. For the first jump, make sure you're getting it as soon as possible so you land on the platform. Now buffer the next jump, which will be from the metal platform, and you'll land on the wood platform where you'll buffer another jump, and you should end up to the left of the fascia where you can heal for the hit. Okay, so now that we've reached the other side, let's get through here. So the reason why we came through here is that we need to hit this right load to actually be put in a good spot to go where we need to go. We could have gone this way, the other way, but in order to actually hit it, we would have needed to wait on the bell for like 20 seconds. So it's not worth it. Going this way is very difficult, a little RNG, but it saves a lot of time. So go through here, turn and turn and turn, and we keep turning until we reach here. This is the entrance to the first section of Blasted Steps. And so now we're going to walk through and actually pick up Claw, which we skipped earlier. Conveniently, the left load of this room will take us to the right one of the next room. But because the Blasted Steps room will be our active room, that will be fine, and we'll actually get put in the bottom of the Blasted Steps room. There's a couple setups you can do from here. You could do a big jump and then walk forward a bit and do another big jump. You could do 2 small jumps, or you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, and do a big jump. Even if you fall here, you will hit this, which would put you over here normally. Then you can just try it again, you'll be in a good spot, won't be too bad. But if we continue on, then we'll actually end up here. Now, I consider this to be the hardest room of the run to get fast. There are so many things that can go wrong, and it's over such a long distance that you need to track that it's very easy to lose track of your character and lose time very quickly. So let's look at how this will work. So first of all, you're just going to walk up to Lace. Now conveniently, Lace is there to stop us from falling in the pit, so we don't have to worry about that, which is very kind of her. So just mash through that, let her go, and then be jumping and going. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-ish. Say about 14, including the jump from Lace. from the right side of the chasm. And you'll end up around here. Now, the important trick is we're going to be listening to the spot that we're landing. And if you land on sand, then you know you are in this area. If you are in some kind of rocky area, you'll hear this sound. And if you are in metal, you'll hear the metal sound. Now, conveniently, in this room, the only metal is right here. So we know that we're in the right spot if we want to use metal, because this is the spot we want to go to. So let's go up here and go here. I like to count about 6, and then I know from there, if I've gotten 6, that I can do 1 full jump and then pogo near the end of it, and I should end up on the wall on the right side. So if we go big jump, pogo near the end of it. Oh, I was actually too far there. So if you are a little bit closer, you do big jump, pogo near the end of it, you should make it just onto that wall. If you're a little bit closer, it's a lot easier. And you'll end up about here. If you do hit the spikes, that's not the end of the world. You'll end up in a good spot to get the backup anyway. Now you're going to end up around here. Ideally, you would stop right on the corner and jump up, but it is very hard to tell where you are, especially when this is what you're going to be hearing in your ears the whole time. It's really hard to differentiate that from the sounds that Hornet makes when she's climbing. So it can be very difficult to tell. If you are a little bit lost about where you are, it's okay. You can walk all the way into the corner and try to do a kind of pogo to the left of it. And you should end up around here. And if you do that, if you landed right here or you got the pogo up, then you're going to want to full jump to the left, walk forward a little bit, and jump up into the load. Now we need to talk again about active room and the bench. Now, like I said before, our only goal is to get this bench. However, if we look at the rooms right now, notice that Shellwood 11 is the active room right now, which is a problem. We need the room that has the bench to be active. So when you bench in this game, the game doesn't check which bench you were on. It actually checks what your active room is and says this is where your respawn point is. Now, if your respawn point is in a room that doesn't have a bench, the game isn't quite sure what to do. It tries to respawn you in that room and put you on a bench, but it can't find that room. It can't find the bench in that room. So as a failsafe, if that happens, the game will instead put you in the starting room of Moss Grotto as the destination room, as a sort of failsafe backup if it can't find it. So that's what we're going to do on purpose here. We're gonna get this bench, we're going to sit on it, and now my respawn point is going to be set at Shellwood 11. So if I'm to die, the game will want to put me at a bench in Shellwood 11. But we know Shellwood 11 does not have a bench. So now we're going to have to die here. There's a funny quirk of Dupes where if you die, normally the game would try to put you at a bench and it actually picks the oldest room to put you at. So our active room did have a bench. So if we died normally, it would try to put us at the bench we just left. However, there's a little quirk about it because we just interacted with Claw. And at Claw, you get your bench set to a hard save there. And that sort of supersedes, and it doesn't interact with the bench system. So if we were to die, it would just put us there instead. It wouldn't care. It wouldn't care that there's a bench to put you on. So instead, we have to reset our bench away from that, even if it's to a fake bench, a bench in a room that doesn't have a bench. The problem with using the cling grip save would be that it doesn't take us to a good spot for the next trick, so we need a reset on that with the fake bench. Now, again, the game looks for that bench in Shellwood 11. However, there is no bench, so instead it defaults the tutorial. However, due to what this game, or what this room looks like, there's actually a hazard in that exact spot where we would spawn. So instead, the game will now just hazard respawn us, and because we don't have a hazard respawn in that room, it defaults to the last load we just left, which is this one. So we go through here, and you can see, because we iterated rooms one more time from dying, this Coral 2, which is the room that has the bench, is now our active room. So when we sit on it, the game knows that we are on this bench. This room is a blind room, and so my movement here is usually 3 pogos, and then kind of walk and tap down as you go to try to find the bench. So, from here, we're going to go back to the right, and this is the point where both routes will join up, because either way, we'll be in a room dupe and heading down to this load below. So, I said earlier that all we need to win is this bench. Well, how? How is that going to work? How are we going to make it all the way to Grandmother Silk with only this bench and only cling grip as equipment? Not even any rosaries. No soul, no rosaries, don't have my cocoon, don't have anything. Well, in order to do that, we actually need to head down and back towards where we were before, as counterintuitive as that may be. And in order to get here, you want to do some pogos, and we're going to keep going here. Actually, this room you do have vision in, so that's nice. And we're going to be heading here. And we're just going to be heading back and forth to get rooms to the right spot. And we need this room right here, but we need it to be the active room. Or sorry, we need it to be the most recently loaded room. Right now it's the active room, which we don't want because we need it to be loaded after a transition. So this will be blind, which is a little bit scary. But my movement here is specific. I like to do 1 pogo to get forward, and then I will jump up and keep holding forward. I'll wait until I hear footsteps to actually jump again. So I'm here. I wait until I hear the wood noise, and then I full jump again. Wait till you hear the wood noise, full jump again. You don't want to buffer your jumps here, or else you can bonk the ceiling and not actually make it. So wait to hear the wood noise, wait to hear the wood noise, wait to hear the wood noise, go up. If you miss, you can also hear the wood noise, so you have to be a little bit careful. But if you stop hearing any noises when you land, you are probably in the water. So, as you can see, I can't hear anything over there. But that's because I'm in the water. If you need to reset, wait until you start hearing metal sounds when Hornet's walking, which only happens when you're near this platform. So I like to walk a little bit when I'm in the metal if I've fallen. And try to just like jump, hold left until I actually make it up to the platform, and continue from there with the strat of waiting to hear the wood noise every time before jumping. Okay, so now we're going to leave and come back again, and because of that, we'll actually have that room as the most recently loaded, which is what we want. So now we're going to get into one of the trickiest to control rooms of the run, and it all comes down to managing the AI of this pawn catcher. Her name is Alice. So you have to be careful because Alice likes to get stuck in the water when she can. And if she even brushes the tips of her toes against the water, she will immediately die. So you have to be really careful about that. And what we're going to be doing is trying to lead her into this corner. And that is for a very specific reason. When Alice is attacking, she maintains aggro of the player. And after she is attacked, she has a 4-second window. And in that window, she will attack again if you are within range. After that window, if she has not seen you for that window, then she will stop attacking until she sees you again, in which case she does a little animation, and then she starts attacking you. We need her to still be in the attacking state when we die here. So we're gonna have to be very careful to make sure to only die during an attack animation. So I'm gonna damage tank here and wait until she attacks and then die. There are a couple more setups you could use, but they're so inconsistent that I would highly recommend not trying them in runs. For this setup, you need to go aggro Alice immediately and then start damage tanking on skippers to the right. You need to die in that precise spot so that Alice can still hit you later, and make sure that the attack happens right as you die. This last setup works with skippers killing you on the right side at the right timing. We can get the pawn skippers to actually move towards us, and they do, but the way they move is very random. They don't always move in the same direction, sometimes they disappear, sometimes they don't know how to aggro to you, and it's just very unlikely that you're actually going to hit. So why do we go through all that trouble of getting Alice to attack in a particular way at a particular timing? Well, when you spawn on a bench, the game temporarily gives you a state that we call Noclip. Normally, it doesn't really matter because as soon as it starts, the game puts a timer on, and then after that timer, you lose your Noclip. However, if we could in some way interrupt that process, then we could keep the Noclip. But surely there's no way that you could just get hit off a bench at the right time and fly through walls, right? Oh, Team Cherry. There are a few ways you can get Noclip, but the main way is by getting hit off a bench after spawning when in a dupe. So what does Noclip even do? Well, as we saw before, it lets you fly through walls, you no longer fall, and you can just attack things in the air. Another thing that it lets you do is fly, and you can just keep holding jump and keep going up. However, it's a little bit more difficult to go down again. You will not just fall to the ground, so it makes it a little awkward. But Hornet has a special ability with some crests, which is very helpful here, which is a down attack that takes you down. Now normally you have a big issue with actually landing, because Hornet will just keep falling, unless you can actually get the mantle, or if you can land on something like water, or if you have dash, you can do a side dash to catch yourself. However, we don't have dash, so that's not really an option for us. And it's very powerful, especially in dupes, because sometimes we just need to get into doors that are behind walls, or inside of a collision, such as the gate to the Citadel. Well, normally you can't walk through that even in a dupe, but if you have Noclip, you can just walk right through it. And Noclip is also very powerful because it lets us find the loads in the dupe that we want to hit, even if they're not normally accessible. It's very powerful for using dupes in new ways. Keep in mind, you obviously can't jump if you're not standing on the ground. So if I am here, for example, I cannot jump again. You have to be a little bit careful. And off we go. Now, a couple things you have to be careful with Noclip. First of all, any hazard you hit will take away your Noclip. Thankfully, I have debug to help out with that, but if I didn't, then I would be in a bad spot. Another issue with Noclip that you have to really watch out for is an upwards transition. So normally when you go through an upwards transition in the game, you sort of do the animation where you fly out of the load and then you come back down and land. Well, the game doesn't actually consider you to have landed until you touch the ground or touch a wall. So the load will not finish until that happens. But if I have Noclip, that's never going to happen. I will just fly. And this is actually a full-on hard lock. You can't actually interact unless you have some debug option to help you. Well, you might think if an upwards load is dangerous because I will never fall back down, that's not an issue with downwards loads because I'm going to fall down and the game does normally give you control back as you're falling. But there's an issue in this game. Because this game makes Hornet be able to enter loads so early, you actually can hit the top load before you leave it, and you're trapped again. So if Noclip has all these restrictions, how are we possibly going to reach Grandmother Silk at the top of Citadel? Isn't there a lot of upwards loads on the way? Well, it's true that there are, but we can actually go around, and I'll show a quick picture of the map. See that actually we go all the way around, but it's very fast because of the power of dupes. Okay, so now that I've covered what Noclip is, let's look how Noclip affects the rest of the run. So, important thing to note here is, as we just saw in the room before, there's water at the bottom of this room. And even though Noclip will normally send you down forever, by landing in the water here, that will still stop you. So, we're just going to quickly land and jump through everything and try to land in the load. Now, what we're going to do from here is just continue left-righting until we make it all the way into the Citadel and a little bit beyond. I will show any of my setups that I use that tell me where I am and when I need to pay attention for. I don't count the amount of times I need to go left or right. Instead, I look for specific scenes that I know are right before the ones where I need to pay attention and stop holding left-right. So, let's look. Just continue left-righting, and eventually you hit this scene. So, this is the first scene that I start paying attention at. After this, we hit a room where you can see a cage in the middle of a blasted steps room. So this is the room that I really pay attention to, because this cage is also going to be in the next room. So, now that we reached here, we need to cross this room. There are two ways of doing it. We just need to get all the way to the other side. So we could just walk and just float across. The other option is to do some pogos, which are faster. This saves about 2 seconds. So you just follow here and just keep pogoing down. You'll reach there eventually. Okay, so again, this is another section where you just left-right a bunch. And I'll show you the scene that I look out for when I know that I need to do something, and that's this scene. I see this scene, which is the tall room. The tall room that has a bunch of exits from it. And I know I need to get to this room all the way up here. So, when I turn around again, I'll actually be at the very top of the room. I don't want to turn into this room. This room would take me the wrong way. I need to cross through Underworks. So instead, we're going to take the other load, which will take us deeper into Underworks. So we go... That is my setup. I do 1 pogo, 2 forward slashes, turn. I believe you can also do just 1 slash, but it's a little bit sketchier. So 2 is guaranteed safe. And again, this is just another keep turning until you see the right room, which is this room. At this room, you need to start paying attention again, and you need to do 2 more turns. And then we need to jump over this first load into the second. Now that might seem a little bit scary at first, but it's really not that bad. You just need to jump up a bit, and from there you are in the right spot. That was a little bit high. If you jump a little bit lower, it's even easier to go. So make sure you miss the first one, and you should be good. Again, this is the longest section of left-rights in the entire run. You're just going to keep left-righting over and over and over until you see a specific room. And that room is the cog room. So I'll point it out when we get there. This is the cog room. This is what you'll actually see. So when you do, start paying attention, you need to do 1 more turn, and after this, we need to actually do different things other than left-righting. Float across this room, and we'll reach here. And this is the split point for the strats coming up. However, before splitting off into the 2 routes, I want to talk about what's going to happen in the next room in both routes. So when we enter this room, like usual, the oldest room will be unloaded and the newest room added. However, this is one of those special rooms which will increase the total number of rooms in our dupe. So with these rooms, there will be an extra scene within that scene. In some cases, it is the boss of the room, but in this case, it is the lace cutscene itself being added as an extra scene, which is interpreted by the game as a room. Now, normally it would be unloaded when you leave the room. However, because we're in a room dupe, it's actually kept on, and because it's in the scene list now, it can be removed when a new room is added, which would, in total, increase the room count to 3. Now, this is going to be really helpful for the dupe from here, but it's also going to make it pretty complex. So there's a lot to keep track of now, and we're going to have to go through it pretty carefully. Okay, so getting into the first section, there will be timestamp if you want to look at the harder strats, but this is going to be the easy strat first. So the first thing you're going to do is just keep walking forward. If you were doing this easy strat, you want to bring a little bit of soul up to this point. A little bit of silk up to this point, if you can. GMS is going to spawn these couple of guys here, and we're going to use them to get the last of the silk that we need. So, pick up this, and sort of lure this guy down, and try not to die, because it is possible to die to that guy. Normally you'd be a little bit lower and you wouldn't have to worry about that, but that's okay. Now we're going to turn here, and then we get a little bit of an easy setup, which is do 1 pogo, 5 up slashes, and then turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and turn left. That's pretty easy to do, not too big of a deal. Now we need these rosaries for our last purchase of the run, which is the Ventrica. So, fun thing about the Ventrica is it takes you all the way up to Grandmother Silk. Now normally there's a wall in the way, but as we've established, I can go through walls right now, so that's not a big deal. So all we need to do is get up there and we can just go challenge Grandmother Silk directly. We don't need anything else. So I'm going to open this Ventrica with the rosaries I just got and buy it. One thing you have to be careful of, if you try to buy from to the right of this, it will actually push you to the right because it wants you to be a certain distance away to start the buying animation. And in pushing you to the right, it actually pushes you into this load, which would be really bad. You cannot mess up loads from here or you just lose. There's there is no way to recover going in the wrong load here. We're juggling rooms around to make sure that rooms are loaded in a very specific way from here, so every transition matters. If you miss once, it's unrecoverable. You have to go back and get Noclip again all the way at the start of the Dupe. So don't do that. Now we're going to be entering Ventrica. Ventricas have a weird property in Dupes, in that they must be used in the most recently loaded room. So if I try to load a Ventrica and then move rooms around and then use a Ventrica from there, it's not going to work. It's going to softlock me in the process of trying to use it. So don't do that. Just use them in the room you just opened, which is what this Dupe does. And we head up to Terminus. Now at Terminus, you want to go to places in a very specific order. Our goal right now is to load some specific rooms and get to challenge Grandmother Silk. So the first room we're loading is going to be the tall room that has a flea at the top right and has some saws on the way leading to it. So go to this room. The setup that I have here, hope that guy's not an issue, is I will jump from here, and as you notice, when you are going up, the camera will be not able to lock onto you, but it'll eventually catch up to you, and so as soon as it catches up to you, that's when you want to let go of jump. So, not up to me. I'm actually a little bit low, but you can land here and jump up a bit. No big deal, and you're good to go. Now from here, we're going to move rooms around a little bit to actually get into the Grandmother Silk Arena. So, turn again, and we're up here. We're at the top right of that room, and the Grandmother Silk challenge point is right down here. So, all we need to do is go down this set of saws, this set of fans, and actually hit the challenge point. Like I said before, when you are moving downwards in Noclip, then you can't actually stop yourself unless there is something else that stops you, such as a dash or clinging onto something, doing the climb up the mantle, things like that. Another way you can mostly stop yourself is by using bind. Now this actually doesn't entirely stop you. You do very slowly float down after it, but it stops you enough that you can actually stand up, and that's good enough. So what we're gonna do is get a setup so that we can go between the fans. What I do here is I do 3 taps to the right, turn, and do 4 pogos. So see that? 1, 2, 3, jump, turn, 1, 2, 3, 4. You should land right here, and heal on the challenge point, and you can challenge. Now, from here, there are sort of 2 ways to continue. As you can see right above me, there are saws that have a bit of a gap between them, and if you get hit by them, you get sent back to your last hazard respawn point, which is bad. You don't want to do that. So instead, either get that jump well, or you can jump above all the saws and don't risk it. The reason why we need to do this is we actually need to go right, because Grandmother Silk likes to follow you. And if you are kind of standing here, she won't follow you into the saws around you. You want to actually go to the right so that she'll follow you more quickly. So I'll try to get this right here. And as you can see from here, walk to the right. And she will die. One thing you can run into issues with is the sort of thread attack. But I found for me that using this strat by immediately going to the right, she has never hit me with it. So I don't think that's an issue if you are quick enough. Now, from here, the rocks phase is going to start, and there's something really important, which is that after the rocks phase, Grandmother Silk will sort of come up, she'll scream, and then she has a tiny bit to move sometimes before she dies from the saws. And in that time, one of her options that she can do is backstep, and she does a little scream that loses a couple seconds. So if you are still on the right when that happens, then when she backsteps, she'll be backstepping out of the saws, and you're going to lose those 2 or 3 seconds that she stops and screams there. However, if you move back to the left during this phase, then when she tries to backstep, she'll actually backstep into the other set of saws and just die immediately. Make sure you're not getting hit by these things. And you're good to go. And that's it. GG. Okay, so now that we've looked at the easy route, let's start looking at what the harder route looks like. So this strat was recently found by Savvy. Thanks, Savvy. And what we're going to do is, instead of going directly, we're going to land in the water here. So when Lace tries to start the cutscene, instead of listening, we can now just jump out of the water and leave. Now that brings its own problems, which we'll get into in a bit. The other strat we can use, which was found by Idax, thank you, is if you are very precise, you can, let me see if I can get it, land in the edge of the water, very quickly land, and pick up this, which will give you control back as you leave. Now that strat I find to be quite a bit more difficult, especially with that reed in the way, which can be quite annoying. But either way, now that we've gotten through this room, we can see part of why that cutscene skip brings some problems. We especially have 2 reasons that are going to be annoying. First of all is that because we didn't finish the lace cutscene, it's still there, and it'll still trap us later if we don't skip all the triggers. The second issue is that we don't have any silk now, so we aren't going to be able to do that heal strat to drop from above and get the safe landing. So we're going to find a new way to do it. So when we get here, before we did one down pogo and 5 up slashes to get there. We can't quite do that anymore. If you see this trigger right here, this is the trigger that if we hit, Lace will get will block us from going anywhere, and we'll start the cutscene and put you in a really bad spot. So we need to get past this trigger. The way I like to do this is do 1 down pogo to the right, 1 down pogo to the left, and then 3 left taps to go above there. You might need to change the number of left taps depending on how much you find that you move with when you tap the button. But either way, continue on. Once again, break the rosary string, buy the ventrica. Don't get pushed back into this load by trying to buy the ventrica from the other side. If you try to buy the ventrica right now, you would get pushed in. Okay. Now we take the ventrica, and we go up to Terminus. We go up to Terminus because we're going to go directly to the Grandmother Silk load up here, so we're not blocked by the wall. Well, we're not going directly, we're going to get there eventually. So the issue with this route that comes in the routing a little bit is that we need to not unload the fan room, which is easier said than done because the actual loads to get there are kind of tricky. So what we're going to do is, again, use the strat of wait till the camera catches up and you're here. And then we're going to be doing turns. I'm going to leave a save state here. And we're going to do 2 more turns. And you'll find yourself here. So once again, if we look at that trigger, you'll see it right here. So we need to get past this trigger. Now, one way you could do it is with some nail slashes to get past. Or if you trust yourself, you can hold left for a little bit, try to end up over here still, and then tap right to move back in bounds. So we're going to jump, tap right, and then when we get to this load, turn back around. Now let's look what that looks like when you don't have force camera follow. Don't do the 2 turns again. And now we're going to hold left a bit, tap right, and then did you see that? As soon as the camera stops moving, you want to stop holding a direction, or you want to stop holding jump immediately. One thing you can do to make this a little easier is, shout out to Pyuk for finding the strat. When you are jumping, let me show you. When you're jumping, if you pause, each time you pause, it halves your speed. So if you need to do a very precise landing, you can pause 4 times even if you want, and you'll go up very slowly. And you can just wait for the camera a little bit. If you wanted to pause once, move at half speed, be able to watch for that camera a little bit easier, but it's not required. You can do this without. But as soon as the instant the camera starts moving, let go of the button, let go of jump, and you should line up with this load. Now, you're going to end up here in this room. Immediately, you can jump up and start moving a little bit to the left, not too much though. You're going to want to look for this shaft over here and start slowing your airspeed down a bit. And land right here. You can see Hornet a little bit before she lands, and this is not a blind jump, which is very helpful here. Now, let me show what that looks like without force camera follow on. Once again. So, again, turn. Jump to the left a bit, tap right. Camera stops moving, let go. And tap left again to move into the load. If you wanted to, you could have paused again to make it a little bit easier there. Now I'm going to talk a bit again about this area right here. You can do the, after you challenge, you can do the little mini jump so that you can get out of the saws a little faster to get Grandmother Silk to follow you and get trapped in these saws and take a bunch of damage. The other option you have is just jump very high, get past all the saws, and go to the right up here, and that also will be good enough. Make sure you don't accidentally hit this load, or this load, that would be bad. So challenge, and hopefully hit the saws, or miss the saws as you jump. You could even pause here if you want to make this a little easier. Probably not necessary, but... you want to do just a little jump here. Oh, that's not good. If you do hit the hazard, though, it is still recoverable, because she will still walk into the saws a bit. It's just a lot slower. One of the things you can do to avoid this is to avoid hitting this hazard trigger. Oh, I died. Uh-oh. In that case, the Grandmother Silk room is actually the last loaded room, so that is just a loss. So try not to do that. One thing, again, that you can do to avoid that, here, let's look at this, is once you go here and go there, if you are very careful to get to this thing late and don't hit that trigger, then you will hazard respawn all the way down at the bottom if you miss. This will be the last respawn trigger that you hit, so you'll spawn all the way down there. And that is far enough over that Grandmother Silk will actually go into the saws. But ideally you just don't get hit, and then you're fine. Now one thing you want to do, again, is you want to move to the left if you can. Getting hit there is not a big deal. As I said before, if you are to the left of Grandmother Silk, after she respawns from the rock phase, she'll just kind of stand there for a little bit, scream in the saws, take a lot of damage. If you are to the right of her, she will sometimes do a backstep, and that backstep will put her over here, out of range of the saws, and then she won't take damage for a bit. She'll like scream for a couple seconds, you lose a couple seconds. If you are to the left of her, then when she tries to backstep, she will backstep into the other set of saws and die. Let's show the other option of what you could do. If you don't want to take that risk of going between the saws, there's a couple things you can do. First thing is, if you want to do this, and you don't want to risk it, you can simply just jump the whole way. As you can see, she went into the saws, and she died. So from here, just cross back to the left while waiting on the rocks. And you'll be fine. And she will backstep into the saws. GG. And the last part of the run. grind. I'd like to dedicate this video to all the glitch hunters, glitch routers, and glitch runners who put so much work and love into making all of this possible. None of this would be here without all of your dedication, and I thank you so much. Special shout out to Sabby for letting me use their video and for making a bunch of these strats, and huge, amazing shout out to Staxis for making over half of this route. He's amazing. Thank you to everyone who kept me motivated through the creation process. Thank you to my partner for putting up with me through all this, and Thank you to all my friends who put up with me disappearing for a while. Thank you to everyone who actually made it through this video. It was fun to make, and I hope it helped you. And I hope you give glitches a chance. They're really fun. Keep on letting your creativity show and use it in cool ways, like glitches or art or whatever makes you you. And my final thank you goes to Team Cherry for making this beautiful and beautifully broken game. Keep doing what you're doing great.